Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to explain and review a new Chinese release drama story called Dipilih Kakak Alpha Tunanganku. This is an emotional werewolf romance filled with betrayal, rejection, hidden powers, unexpected destiny, and a love that appears at the most unexpected moment. The story follows a young wolf girl who has never been able to awaken her true powers, making her feel weak and unwanted in a world where strength determines status and respect. She believes that her engagement to an alpha will finally give her a place where she belongs, but everything changes when the man she trusts betrays and rejects her. Just when she thinks her life has completely fallen apart, she encounters his mysterious older brother, and a shocking truth begins to emerge. The man standing in front of her may not simply be her former fiancé's brother. He may be the one destiny chose for her all along. So stay with me until the end, because this story is full of surprising twists, emotional moments, hidden secrets, and a powerful journey of a girl who must discover her true worth. Now, let's begin the story. The story begins in a powerful wolf kingdom where every member of the pack knows that strength is extremely important. In this world, wolves are not judged only by their personalities or hearts. Their bloodline, position, fighting ability, and especially their ability to awaken their wolf powers determine how much respect they receive. The strongest wolves can become leaders, while those who fail to awaken their abilities are often treated as weak links. For one young girl, this reality has made her entire life painfully difficult. She was born into a wolf family, but despite reaching the age when her powers should have appeared, nothing happened. She could not transform properly, she could not feel the strength that other wolves naturally possessed, and she had never experienced the awakening everyone around her talked about. At first, her family tried to encourage her. They told her that everyone awakened at a different time and that she should not lose hope. But as the years passed, those encouraging words slowly disappeared. People began whispering about her behind her back. Some called her defective, while others believed she would never become a true wolf. The situation became even more painful because she was connected to one of the most important families in the pack. She was engaged to a young alpha, a man who was expected to inherit enormous power and responsibility. In the beginning, she believed that this engagement was proof that someone truly valued her. Even though she had no awakened powers, she thought her fiancé looked beyond that weakness. She believed he saw the person she really was and that their future together would give her the confidence she had always lacked. For a long time, she held on to that belief. Whenever people mocked her weakness, she reminded herself that she had an alpha fiancé. Whenever someone questioned whether she deserved a place among powerful wolves, she convinced herself that her engagement meant she was protected. She dreamed about the day when she would finally become part of the alpha family and leave behind the humiliation she had endured for so long. But the reality was very different from what she imagined. Her fiancé had never truly accepted her weakness. As his position became more important, his attitude toward her gradually changed. He began caring more about his reputation than her feelings. Instead of standing beside her when others criticized her, he started avoiding her. Instead of defending her, he became embarrassed whenever people mentioned that his future mate had not awakened her powers. At first, she tried to ignore the change. She told herself that perhaps he was under pressure because of his responsibilities. She continued trusting him, believing that the man she loved would eventually return to the person he had once been. But every cold glance and every distant conversation slowly destroyed that hope. Then came the moment that changed everything. The alpha fiancé publicly rejected her. For the young wolf girl, the rejection was not just the loss of a relationship. It was the destruction of the future she had built inside her heart. The man she believed would protect her had decided that her lack of power made her unworthy of standing beside him. In front of others, she was forced to face the truth she had been trying to avoid. He did not love her enough to accept her as she was. The humiliation was overwhelming. She could hear the judgment around her, but the loudest voice was the one inside her own mind. She began wondering whether everyone had been right about her. Maybe she really was too weak. Maybe she truly had no place in this world. Maybe the absence of her powers meant she would always be inferior to everyone else. She left the situation heartbroken, trying to hide her tears from everyone. She did not want anyone to see how deeply the rejection had affected her. For years, she had tried to prove that she was strong despite having no awakened powers, but now she felt as if every bit of confidence she had built had been taken away. Yet destiny had not finished with her. As she wandered away from the people who had rejected her, she unexpectedly encountered the older brother of her former fiancé. Unlike his younger brother, this man carried himself with calm authority. He was powerful, respected, and difficult to read. He did not look at her as if she were a weak wolf who had failed to awaken her powers. Instead, he noticed the pain she was desperately trying to hide. She expected another judgmental conversation. She expected him to ask why she had been rejected or perhaps to remind her of her weakness. But he did neither. His quiet presence made her uncomfortable because, for the first time in a long while, someone seemed to be looking at her without immediately measuring her worth by her abilities. She did not yet understand why their meeting felt so different. She certainly did not know that this encounter was the beginning of a completely new chapter in her life. The young wolf girl believed that her story had ended with the alpha's rejection. She thought she had lost everything she had ever hoped for. But destiny was preparing a truth that would completely change her understanding of love, power, and her own identity. Because the man she had just met, the older brother of the alpha who rejected her, was connected to her by a bond far deeper than either of them could yet understand. And before long, she would discover that the person she thought had been taken away from her was never truly meant for her in the first place. The young wolf girl tried to convince herself that meeting the older brother was nothing more than a coincidence. After everything that had happened, she did not want to become involved with the alpha family again. She had already experienced enough humiliation from one member of that family, and the last thing she wanted was another reminder of the rejection that had shattered her heart. So when the older brother approached her calmly, she immediately became defensive. She thanked him for his concern but made it clear that she did not need anyone's pity. She had spent years being treated as someone weak, and she did not want another powerful wolf looking at her as if she were a helpless girl who needed to be rescued. But the older brother did not react angrily. Instead, he simply watched her with an unusual seriousness. There was something about his expression that made her feel as though he was trying to understand something she herself had not noticed. He asked her why she was determined to carry all of her pain alone. She had no answer. She had always believed that showing weakness would only give other people another reason to look down on her. He then told her something that stayed in her mind long after they separated. He said that being unable to awaken her powers did not automatically make her weak. Strength was not always something that could be seen. Sometimes the strongest person was the one who continued standing after being hurt by everyone around them. His words were simple, but they affected her deeply because they were completely different from everything she had heard before. For the first time since the rejection, she felt that perhaps someone had actually seen her rather than her failure to awaken. Still, she refused to trust him completely. He was the older brother of the man who had betrayed her, after all. She could not understand why he was treating her with such patience. She wondered whether he was simply being polite or whether there was another reason behind his behavior. She decided to keep her distance and return to her own life. But destiny continued bringing them together. In the days that followed, the young girl repeatedly crossed paths with the older brother. Sometimes their meetings were brief, while other times circumstances forced them to remain near each other. Each time, she noticed something strange. Whenever he was around, she felt a mysterious sense of familiarity. It was not ordinary comfort. It was as if some hidden part of her recognized him even though her mind could not explain why. She tried to ignore the feeling. Meanwhile, rumors about the broken engagement began spreading throughout the pack. People discussed the rejection as if it were entertainment. Some claimed that the alpha had made the correct decision because a leader needed a powerful mate. Others mocked the young girl for believing that she could ever become part of the alpha family without awakened abilities. Every rumor made her feel smaller. But there were also people who began questioning the alpha's decision. They knew the young girl had always been kind, loyal, and patient. They remembered how she had supported her fiancé before he became powerful enough to look down on her. They could not understand why he had suddenly discarded her as if she meant nothing. The alpha, however, seemed determined to move forward. He wanted everyone to forget the former engagement and accept his decision. He acted as though rejecting her had been nothing more than a necessary choice for the future of the pack. His pride prevented him from admitting that his actions had caused real pain. The young girl eventually realized that waiting for him to regret his decision would only keep her trapped in the past. She began focusing on herself. Instead of trying to prove that she deserved the alpha's love, she started asking a more important question: who was she without him? That question became the beginning of her transformation. She started training her body even though she still could not access her wolf powers. Every morning, She practiced until she was exhausted. She learned to control her breathing, improve her speed, strengthen her reflexes, and defend herself without depending on supernatural abilities. Her progress was slow, but for the first time, she was doing something for herself rather than trying to satisfy someone else. The older brother quietly noticed her determination. He did not interfere unnecessarily, but whenever she struggled, he offered advice. He taught her that power was not only about attacking an enemy. It was also about discipline, awareness, and controlling fear. She initially resisted his guidance because she did not want to owe him anything. But eventually, she began accepting his help. Their relationship slowly changed. The distance between them became smaller, and she discovered that beneath his cold and intimidating appearance was a man who carried his own burdens. He was not simply the powerful older brother of the Alpha. He had spent years protecting the pack and carrying responsibilities that others rarely understood. Unlike his younger brother, he did not seem interested in receiving praise. He cared more about keeping the people around him safe. The young girl began noticing the difference between the two brothers. One had judged her by what she could not do, while the other seemed interested in what she could become. Still, neither of them understood the strange bond developing between them. One evening, while they were together, something unusual happened. The young girl suddenly felt a powerful sensation inside her chest. Her heart began beating rapidly, and for a brief moment, she felt an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her body. She became frightened because she had never experienced anything like it before. The older brother immediately noticed the change. He stepped closer and asked whether she was all right. She tried to answer, but before she could, the strange sensation disappeared. She was left confused and embarrassed. She assumed it was simply another reaction caused by the emotional stress she had been experiencing. But the older brother did not believe that. He had felt something too. For a moment, his usually controlled expression changed. He seemed genuinely shocked, as though he had sensed something that should have been impossible. Yet he said nothing. He did not want to frighten her before he understood what was happening. That night, both of them were left with questions. Why did her presence affect him so strongly? Why did she feel an inexplicable connection whenever he was near? And why had her body reacted so strangely at the exact moment they were together? The answers would soon become impossible to hide. Meanwhile, the young girl's former fiancé began noticing that she was no longer chasing after him. He had expected her to remain heartbroken and perhaps beg him to reconsider. Instead, she was slowly becoming independent. She was spending time training, gaining confidence, and most importantly, no longer seeking his approval. This unexpected change irritated him. He had rejected her because he believed she was too weak to stand beside him. Yet now, seeing her become stronger without him made him question whether he had underestimated her. Then he noticed something even more disturbing. She was becoming close to his older brother. At first, he dismissed it. He believed his brother would never become interested in a girl who had failed to awaken her powers. But the more he observed them, the more uncomfortable he became. There was an unusual understanding between them that he could not explain. And what the former fiancé did not know was that this connection was not based on pity, friendship, or revenge. Something far more powerful was beginning to awaken between them. The young wolf girl still believed she had lost the person destined to be her partner when her engagement ended. She had no idea that the rejection had actually pushed her toward the person destiny had chosen for her from the beginning. And when the truth about their fated bond finally came to light, it would not only change her life. It would shake the entire Alpha family. The strange connection between the young wolf girl and the Alpha's older brother continued to grow, even though neither of them fully understood it. Every time they were together, there was an unusual sense of familiarity between them, as if they had known each other long before they actually met. She tried to convince herself that it was simply because he had treated her with kindness after her painful rejection. But deep down, she knew there was something different about the way she felt around him. The older brother felt it too, but he was much more cautious. He had spent years learning to control his emotions and never allowed himself to make important decisions based on feelings alone. Yet whenever she was nearby, that control became harder to maintain. He could sense something unusual whenever he looked at her, something that seemed connected to the deepest part of his wolf instincts. He did not want to assume anything without proof, especially because she had already suffered enough because of his younger brother. For the young girl, however, life was finally beginning to change. She continued training every day, determined to become stronger even if her wolf powers never awakened. Her motivation was no longer to prove herself to her former fiancé. She wanted to prove to herself that her value was not determined by whether she could transform like everyone else. She started becoming more confident. Her movements became faster, her endurance improved, and she learned how to remain calm under pressure. The older brother occasionally watched her training from a distance. He could see that she was not naturally gifted in the way many powerful wolves were, but her determination was extraordinary. One afternoon, during a difficult training session, she pushed herself too far. She became exhausted and nearly collapsed. The older brother immediately stepped forward and caught her before she hit the ground. The moment he touched her, both of them felt that strange sensation again. This time, it was stronger. A sudden wave of warmth moved through her body, followed by a brief flash of energy that she could not control. Her eyes widened, and the older brother immediately became serious. He could feel something awakening within her, but it disappeared before either of them could understand it. She asked him what had just happened. He hesitated. He could have told her that he suspected there was something unusual about their connection, but he knew that making a careless statement could create even more confusion. Instead, he told her that she might be closer to awakening her powers than she realized. Those words gave her hope. For years, she had believed that she was permanently broken because her powers had never appeared. Now, for the first time, someone was telling her that perhaps her awakening had simply been delayed. She began training with even greater determination. But while she was discovering hope, her former fiancé was becoming increasingly frustrated. He could not understand why she seemed happier without him. He had expected her to remain emotionally dependent on him after the rejection. Instead, she was changing. She no longer lowered her head when people mocked her. She no longer looked toward him for approval. When they crossed paths, she treated him with calm distance. That change wounded his pride. He began questioning whether he had made a mistake. Yet instead of admitting his feelings, he became suspicious of the relationship between her and his older brother. One day, he confronted his brother and asked why he was spending so much time with his former fiancée. The older brother remained calm and simply said that she deserved respect. The younger alpha became angry and accused him of interfering in matters that did not concern him. The older brother did not argue. He only reminded him that he had been the one to end the engagement and that he had no right to control her life afterward. That answer silenced him, but it also made the tension between the brothers worse. The young girl knew nothing about this confrontation. She was focused on her own progress. Yet the atmosphere around the Alpha family had begun changing. People were noticing that the older brother was becoming unusually protective of her. Some began whispering that perhaps the two of them had developed feelings for each other. The rumors eventually reached her. She became uncomfortable and tried to create distance again. She did not want people thinking she was getting close to the Alpha's brother simply to take revenge on her former fiancé. She also feared becoming the center of another scandal. When she explained this to the older brother, he listened quietly. Then he told her that she should stop living according to other people's opinions. The people who had judged her before would continue judging her no matter what she did. If she spent her entire life trying to satisfy them, she would never be free. His words gave her courage. She decided not to run away. At the same time, the older brother began investigating the strange reactions he experienced around her. He spoke privately with someone knowledgeable about ancient wolf traditions and asked about unusual sensations between two wolves. The answer immediately caught his attention. There were rare cases in which two wolves experienced an intense instinctive connection before discovering that they were destined mates. Such bonds were not created through ordinary attraction. They were believed to be chosen by fate itself. The older brother refused to jump to conclusions, but the possibility remained in his mind. Could she really be his fated mate? The thought frightened him because of the complicated circumstances. She had once been engaged to his younger brother. If the truth was what he suspected, then the situation could create an enormous conflict within the Alpha family. Meanwhile, the young girl continued experiencing strange changes. She began having vivid dreams in which she felt surrounded by a powerful wolf presence. She would wake up with her heart racing, unable to remember everything she had seen. Sometimes she could hear what sounded like a distant howl. Other times she felt as though something inside her was trying to break free. She initially believed the dreams were simply caused by stress. But then something happened during training that could no longer be dismissed. As she pushed herself through another exercise, she suddenly heard a powerful sound inside her mind. Her body froze, and a surge of energy rushed through her. For a few seconds, her senses became sharper than ever before. She could hear movements from a great distance, smell the presence of other wolves nearby, and feel the energy surrounding her. Then everything vanished. She fell to her knees, shocked. For the first time in her life, she had felt the presence of her wolf. The older brother immediately understood that this was not an ordinary event. Her powers were beginning to awaken. But there was another mystery. The moment her wolf presence emerged, the bond between the two of them became stronger. The older brother felt it from a distance, almost like an invisible force pulling him toward her. He finally realized that whatever was happening between them could not be ignored anymore. Still, the truth had not yet been revealed to the young girl. And before she could discover that the older brother might be her destined mate, another challenge was approaching. Her former fiancé was beginning to regret his decision, while the Alpha family was becoming increasingly suspicious of the mysterious bond between the two. The rejection that had once seemed like the end of her story was slowly becoming the beginning of something much greater. And soon, the truth would force all of them to confront the one thing they had never expected. Destiny had chosen a completely different path for her. The young wolf girl had barely begun to understand the strange changes happening inside her when her life became complicated once again. After years of believing that she was incapable of awakening her wolf powers, she could now sense something alive within her. It was still weak and difficult to control, but it was undeniably there. For the first time, she felt that perhaps the people who had called her powerless had been wrong. She kept the experience private at first. She was afraid that if she told everyone, they would either laugh at her or expect too much from her. She wanted to understand her abilities before allowing anyone else to know. The older brother was the only person she trusted enough to discuss it with. When she finally told him what she had experienced, he listened carefully and asked her to describe every detail. He immediately realized that her awakening was unusual. Most wolves experienced a clear transformation when their powers emerged, but her awakening appeared to be happening gradually. Instead of immediately gaining full strength, she was developing heightened senses and brief surges of energy. It was almost as though something inside her had been sealed for years and was now slowly breaking free. The older brother encouraged her not to rush. He warned her that forcing an awakening could be dangerous if she did not understand her own body. She agreed, although part of her was impatient. After being considered weak for so long, she wanted to see what she was truly capable of. Their training sessions became more frequent. He taught her how to control the energy whenever it appeared. She learned to focus on her breathing, listen to her instincts, and remain calm instead of allowing fear to control her. Every small improvement gave her more confidence. But something else was happening during those sessions. Their bond was becoming stronger. Whenever she was frightened, he could somehow sense it. Whenever he was in danger, she felt an unexplained uneasiness even when she was nowhere near him. Neither of them could explain how they knew when something was wrong with the other. One evening, the young girl suddenly became overwhelmed by a powerful sensation while standing near him. Her heartbeat accelerated, and she felt a warmth spread through her entire body. She instinctively stepped back, confused by the intensity of the feeling. The older brother looked equally unsettled. He knew what the sign suggested, but he still hesitated to tell her. He wanted to be absolutely certain before revealing something that could completely change her life. Meanwhile, rumors about her awakening began spreading. Someone had seen the unusual energy during her training, and word quickly reached members of the pack. People who had once mocked her suddenly became curious. Some wondered whether her powers had been hidden all along. Others suspected that her connection with the older brother might have triggered the awakening. The former fiancé heard the rumors too. His reaction was complicated. On one hand, he was surprised that the girl he had rejected might actually possess significant potential. On the other hand, he felt increasingly threatened by the fact that she was becoming closer to his older brother. He began remembering their past. He remembered the time when she had supported him when no one else believed in him. He remembered how loyal she had been and how patiently she had waited for him. He had taken all of that for granted because he believed that her lack of powers made her inferior. Now that she was changing, he began wondering whether he had thrown away something valuable. But instead of apologizing immediately, his pride kept him silent. The older brother noticed his younger brother's changing attitude and warned him not to interfere with her life. He reminded him that he had made his choice. If he truly respected her, he should allow her to move forward. The younger alpha argued that the situation was not that simple. The older brother responded that it was simple enough. He had rejected her, and she had accepted that rejection. She was no longer his responsibility. The conversation ended with both brothers realizing that their relationship would never be the same again. The young girl remained unaware of how serious the conflict had become. She was more focused on discovering the truth about herself. One night, she had another powerful dream. This time, she saw herself standing in a vast forest beneath a bright moon. A large wolf appeared in the distance, watching her silently. She felt no fear. Instead, she felt a deep sense of recognition. Then another presence appeared beside her. She could not see the person's face clearly, but she could feel the same warmth she experienced whenever the older brother was near. The wolf looked toward the mysterious figure, and the dream suddenly ended. She woke up confused. For the first time, she began wondering whether her strange dreams were connected to the older brother. She tried to dismiss the idea, but the feeling remained. The next morning, she asked him whether wolves could somehow sense their destined partners before understanding the bond. The older brother became completely still. He knew that she was getting close to the truth. He asked why she was asking such a question. She explained her dreams and the strange feelings she experienced around him. He listened without interrupting. Finally, he told her that there were ancient stories about fated mates whose wolves could recognize each other before their human minds understood the connection. Her heart began beating faster. She asked whether he thought that could be happening to them. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he admitted that he had been investigating the possibility. She stared at him in disbelief. He carefully explained that there were signs suggesting they might share a fated bond. He did not want to claim certainty yet, but he could no longer pretend that their connection was ordinary. The revelation left her overwhelmed. The man standing before her was the older brother of the alpha who had rejected her. The idea that he could somehow be her destined mate seemed impossible. She immediately thought about her former engagement. How could destiny choose her for the older brother after she had once been promised to his younger brother? The older brother understood her confusion. He told her that destiny did not always follow human plans. An engagement could be broken. A promise could be made and later abandoned. But a true fated bond, if it existed, was something completely different. His words touched something deep inside her. For years, she had believed that being rejected meant she was unwanted. Now she was beginning to realize that perhaps the rejection had not been a punishment at all. Perhaps it had opened a door she had never known existed. Still, she was afraid. She had just escaped one painful relationship, and she did not want to immediately enter another without understanding her own feelings. The older brother did not pressure her. He told her she could take all the time she needed. That patience made her trust him even more. But their conversation had been overheard. Someone from the Alpha family had discovered enough of the truth to realize that something extraordinary was happening between them. And once the possibility of a fated bond became known, the matter could no longer remain private. The Alpha family would soon have to face a shocking reality. The girl they had once considered too weak to become their alpha's mate might actually possess a rare power. And the man destined to stand beside her might be the very person whose existence could destroy the balance between the two brothers. The young girl had spent her entire life believing she was powerless. Now, both her hidden strength and her hidden destiny were beginning to awaken at the same time. The secret about the possible fated bond could not remain hidden for long. Once the Alpha family learned that the older brother and the young wolf girl might share a destined connection, the atmosphere around them changed completely. People who had once ignored her suddenly began watching her every move. Some were curious, while others were suspicious. The same girl they had dismissed as powerless was suddenly connected to the most respected wolf in the family. The young girl felt uncomfortable with the attention. She had never wanted fame or status. All she had wanted was to be treated with basic respect. Now, however, everyone seemed interested in her because of the possibility that she might become the older brother's mate. The older brother remained calm. He knew that the situation would become difficult, but he refused to allow the pack's opinions to control his decisions. He also understood that the girl needed time. She had already been rejected once, and he did not want her to feel as though she had simply moved from one alpha brother to another because circumstances had forced her to. He told her that whatever happened next, the decision would remain hers. Those words gave her comfort. Meanwhile, the former fiancé was struggling with emotions he could not control. He had spent so long believing that rejecting her was the right decision that he had convinced himself he would never regret it. But now that she was becoming stronger and his own brother might be her fated mate, jealousy began taking control of him. He remembered how she had once looked at him with complete trust. He remembered how she had defended him when other wolves questioned his leadership. Most painfully, he remembered the moment he had rejected her and watched her walk away without looking back. At the time, he had thought she would eventually return. Now he was realizing that she might never return at all. His jealousy became worse when he saw the older brother protecting her during a pack gathering. The older brother did not make a public declaration, but his actions made his position clear. He stood near her, made sure she was not harassed, and calmly shut down anyone who attempted to insult her. The former fiancé could no longer ignore what he was seeing. He confronted his older brother privately. He demanded to know whether the older brother truly intended to accept the young girl as his mate if the fated bond was confirmed. The older brother answered honestly. If destiny had truly chosen them, he would not reject her simply because of the past engagement. The younger alpha accused him of taking advantage of the situation. The older brother immediately rejected that accusation. He reminded him that he had been the one who rejected her first. He had made it clear that she was not good enough for him. He could not suddenly claim ownership over her simply because someone else valued her. The argument became intense, but the older brother remained controlled. He told his younger brother that regret was not the same as love. Those words struck deeply. The younger alpha had no answer. Meanwhile, the young girl was beginning to regain her confidence. She no longer felt ashamed of her past. Instead, she began accepting that her lack of awakened powers had never made her worthless. During another training session, her powers suddenly surged again. This time, she did not collapse. She managed to control the energy. Her senses became sharper, her movements faster, and a faint aura of wolf energy surrounded her. She was shocked by what she had accomplished. The older brother watched carefully. He could sense that her power was far greater than anyone had expected. The girl asked whether this meant her wolf was finally awakening. He told her that it was only the beginning. She wanted to know why her powers had remained hidden for so many years. The older brother explained that there could be many reasons. Some wolves awakened later because their strength was unusual. Others required a specific emotional or spiritual trigger. There were even ancient stories of wolves whose true abilities remained sealed until they encountered their destined mate. The young girl immediately became silent. She realized that her awakening had begun after she met him. The possibility frightened her. If her powers and their bond were connected, then their relationship was not simply a coincidence. At that moment, an urgent message arrived. A group of hostile wolves had been spotted near the edge of the territory. The alpha family immediately prepared to respond. The older brother was expected to lead the defense, while the younger alpha wanted to prove that he was capable of handling the threat himself. The young girl was ordered to remain behind because everyone believed she was still too inexperienced. She disagreed. For the first time, she refused to allow others to decide what she could or could not do. She told the older brother that she wanted to help. He was hesitant because he knew her powers were still unstable. But he also knew that keeping her sheltered would prevent her from discovering her true abilities. He agreed with one condition: she would remain close to him and follow his instructions. The confrontation began near the territory boundary. At first, the hostile wolves appeared stronger and more organized than expected. The pack members struggled to contain them. The younger alpha tried to take control, but his anger caused him to make several reckless decisions. The older brother remained calm and coordinated the defense. The young girl stayed close, watching carefully. Then one of the attackers moved toward her. She froze for a moment. Fear surged through her body, but instead of collapsing, something inside her responded. Her wolf awakened. A powerful burst of energy exploded around her, forcing the attacker backward. Everyone nearby stopped. The young girl stared at her own hands in disbelief. She had done it. After years of waiting, she had finally awakened her powers. But this awakening was not ordinary. The energy she released was far stronger than anyone expected from a wolf who had supposedly been powerless for years. The older brother immediately realized the truth. Her strength had never been absent. It had been sealed. The battle continued, and for the first time, the young girl fought beside the man who would become her greatest source of confidence. She was still inexperienced, but her instincts were remarkably strong. Whenever fear threatened to overwhelm her, she remembered his training and remained focused. Together, they helped push the attackers away. When the battle finally ended, everyone was stunned by what they had witnessed. The girl who had once been mocked as the weakest member of the pack had demonstrated extraordinary power. Even the younger alpha was speechless. He looked at her and realized that the person he had rejected was no longer the same frightened girl he remembered. But the battle had also revealed something else. When her powers awakened, the bond between her and the older brother became unmistakable. Both of their wolves reacted simultaneously. The sensation was so powerful that several experienced wolves nearby could feel it. There was no longer any easy way to deny what was happening. The fated connection between them was becoming real. The young girl looked at the older brother, still trying to understand everything. He looked back at her with an expression she had never seen before. There was no pity in his eyes. There was respect. And perhaps something much deeper. But before they could speak, an elder from the pack approached them. His expression was serious. He said that if the bond they had sensed was truly what everyone suspected, then the Alpha Council would have to verify it. The young girl suddenly felt nervous. She had thought awakening her powers would finally prove her worth. Instead, it had opened the door to an even greater conflict. Because once the Council confirmed the identity of her fated mate, the entire Alpha family would be forced to confront a truth that could change the future of the pack forever. After the battle at the territory boundary, everything changed. The young wolf girl had spent years being treated as the weakest person in the pack, but now everyone had witnessed her power awakening. The same wolves who once whispered about her inability to transform were suddenly speaking about her with caution and respect. She could feel their eyes following her wherever she went, and although part of her was proud of what she had accomplished, another part of her felt overwhelmed. She still did not fully understand her own abilities. The energy that had appeared during the battle was unlike anything she had experienced before. It had been powerful, instinctive, and almost impossible to control. She knew that if she wanted to use her strength safely, she needed to learn more about it. The older brother remained beside her throughout the aftermath. He did not treat her differently simply because she had demonstrated unusual power. Instead, he reminded her that awakening was only the beginning. Real strength came from learning how to control what had awakened. The Alpha Council summoned both of them. The council was made up of the oldest and most respected wolves in the territory. They had witnessed generations of alpha families rise and fall, and they understood the significance of a possible fated bond. When the young girl entered the council chamber, she immediately felt nervous. She had once stood in front of powerful wolves as someone they considered unworthy. Now she was standing before them as someone whose destiny could affect the future of the entire pack. The council asked her to describe what she had experienced during the battle. She explained how her body had suddenly filled with energy and how she had felt her wolf awaken for the first time. Then they questioned the older brother. He explained the strange connection they had experienced before the battle and described how the bond had intensified when her powers awakened. The council members exchanged serious looks. One elder finally explained that there were rare signs associated with a fated mate bond. The unusual energy, the instinctive connection, and the synchronized reactions of their wolves were all strong evidence. But they wanted certainty. The council performed an ancient verification ritual designed to identify whether two wolves truly shared a destined bond. The young girl stood on one side while the older brother stood opposite her. She was terrified. She had already experienced one relationship ending in rejection, and now the possibility of being connected to another powerful man made her afraid of what would happen if the bond was confirmed. The older brother noticed her fear. He quietly told her that nothing would happen against her wishes. Even if the bond was real, she would still have the right to decide what she wanted. His reassurance helped her remain calm. The ritual began. At first, nothing happened. The young girl began wondering whether everyone had misunderstood the signs. Then a faint energy appeared around her. The older brother immediately felt it. His own wolf responded. The energy between them grew stronger until the entire chamber seemed to react. The council members watched in silence as the two energies moved toward each other. The result was undeniable. They were fated mates. The young girl could barely process the words. For years, she had believed that she had been rejected because she was not good enough. Now she was learning that destiny had chosen someone else for her. But the person destiny had chosen was the older brother of the man who had rejected her. The news spread throughout the pack almost immediately. Some wolves celebrated because they believed the bond would strengthen the alpha family. Others were concerned because the situation could create conflict between the two brothers. The younger alpha was devastated. He had finally begun to understand how much he had lost, but now the truth was undeniable. The woman he had once rejected was his older brother's fated mate. He could not simply demand her return. He had given up that right when he publicly rejected her. Yet emotionally, he struggled to accept the consequences of his own decision. He began blaming the older brother, even though the older brother had never pursued the girl while she was engaged. He had respected the previous relationship and only accepted the possibility of their bond after the engagement ended. The young girl also struggled with the situation. She knew that the older brother had treated her with kindness and respect, and she had developed feelings for him. But she was afraid that people would accuse her of intentionally becoming involved with the alpha family after her rejection. The older brother told her not to listen to those accusations. He reminded her that she had not chosen the bond. Destiny had revealed it. Still, he did not pressure her into accepting a relationship immediately. Instead, he gave her space. That made her feelings for him grow even stronger. For the first time in her life, she was with someone who did not demand that she prove her worth. He never told her she needed to become stronger to deserve him. He never treated her awakening as a reason to suddenly value her. He had respected her even when she had no power. That difference meant everything to her. Meanwhile, the younger alpha's behavior became increasingly unstable. He began trying to convince himself that he still had a chance. He remembered the good moments from their past and started believing that perhaps she could forgive him. One evening, he approached her privately. He apologized. For the first time, he admitted that he had been wrong to judge her based on her lack of power. He confessed that he had cared too much about what other wolves thought and had allowed his ambition to destroy their relationship. The young girl listened quietly. Part of her had once dreamed of hearing those words. But now they no longer had the same power over her. She told him that his apology came too late. She had spent too many nights wondering what was wrong with her because of his rejection. She had blamed herself for something that had never been her fault. He asked whether she could forgive him. She told him that she could forgive him for her own peace, but forgiveness did not mean returning to the past. Those words finally forced him to face reality. He had lost her. Not because someone had stolen her from him. He had lost her because he had chosen to reject her when she needed him most. The older brother later learned about their conversation but did not become jealous. He trusted her decision. That trust made her realize how different their relationship was from her previous engagement. With her former fiancé, she had constantly feared being abandoned. With the older brother, she felt free to make her own choices. However, the council soon revealed another problem. The girl's awakened power was not ordinary. Ancient records suggested that wolves with such abilities could influence the balance of power within an entire territory. If her strength continued developing, she could become far more powerful than anyone had expected. Some members of the council wanted her closely monitored. Others feared that she might eventually become a threat. The older brother immediately objected to treating her as a weapon. He argued that she deserved guidance, not suspicion. The girl heard his words and felt something inside her settle. For years, powerful people had spoken about her as though she were a problem to be solved. He was the first person to stand beside her and say that she was a person who deserved to choose her own future. But the council was not finished. The elders warned that the awakening of such rare power could attract enemies from outside the territory. If her abilities became known to rival packs, they might try to capture her or use her power for their own purposes. The young girl realized that her journey was much bigger than she had imagined. She had thought awakening her wolf would simply prove that she was not weak. Now she understood that her power came with responsibility. The older brother promised to help her master it. And as they stood together, the bond between them grew stronger. Yet somewhere beyond their territory, someone had already heard rumors about the mysterious girl whose sealed powers had awakened. Someone who knew that her abilities were connected to an ancient secret. And that secret was about to bring a new danger into her life. The rejection that started her journey had already transformed her. Her awakening had changed the balance of power. Her fated bond had changed the Alpha family. Now, the hidden truth behind her powers was about to change the entire pack. The revelation about the young wolf girl's unusual power quickly changed the way the entire pack viewed her. She was no longer the powerless girl who had once been rejected by the young Alpha. She was now a rare wolf whose strength had awakened after years of remaining hidden, and even the elders were beginning to understand that there was something extraordinary about her bloodline. But while the pack was discussing her future, she was still trying to understand her own heart. The older brother remained her strongest source of support. He never rushed her into accepting the fated bond simply because the council had confirmed it. Instead, he continued helping her train and control her newly awakened abilities. He understood that discovering such immense power after years of believing she had none could be frightening. During their training, she learned that her powers responded strongly to her emotions. When she became frightened or angry, her energy became unstable. When she remained calm and focused, she could control it more effectively. The older brother taught her to stop thinking of her power as something dangerous and instead view it as a part of herself. One afternoon, she accidentally released a surge of energy powerful enough to crack the ground beneath her feet. She immediately panicked, afraid that she had hurt someone. The older brother approached her calmly and told her not to be afraid of herself. She asked what would happen if she lost control. He answered that true strength was not the absence of fear. It was learning how to act even when fear was present. His words reminded her of how far she had come. Before meeting him, she had always been afraid of being judged. She had spent years trying to hide her weaknesses. Now she was slowly learning that she did not have to be ashamed of who she was. Their relationship also became more natural. They began talking about things unrelated to powers or destiny. She learned about his childhood, his responsibilities, and the sacrifices he had made for the pack. She discovered that his cold personality had been shaped by years of carrying burdens that others never saw. He, in turn, learned about her dreams. She admitted that before her rejection, she had wanted nothing more than to belong somewhere. She wanted a family that accepted her and a partner who would never make her feel ashamed of herself. The older brother told her that she deserved those things. She asked whether he was saying that because they were fated mates. He answered that even without the bond, he would still believe she deserved them. That answer touched her deeply. For the first time, she realized that their relationship was not built only on destiny. There was genuine respect and affection between them. But their happiness was interrupted by a new threat. Reports began arriving from the borders. Several members of the pack had noticed unfamiliar wolves moving through the surrounding forests. They were not openly attacking, but they were watching the territory. The elders immediately became concerned. They suspected that word about the girl's awakening had reached a rival group. The older brother wanted to increase security around her, but he knew that keeping her hidden would not solve the problem. If someone was truly searching for her, they needed to understand why. An investigation revealed something disturbing. The young girl's bloodline had been misunderstood for generations. Her family had always believed that her inability to awaken was a weakness. But ancient records suggested that some members of her bloodline possessed a rare form of power that awakened much later than ordinary wolf abilities. Their strength could remain dormant until a specific trigger activated it. The fated mate bond appeared to have been that trigger. The girl was shocked. Everything she had believed about herself was being rewritten. The years of humiliation suddenly looked different. Maybe she had never been weak. Maybe her power had simply been waiting for the right moment. The older brother encouraged her not to let this discovery make her arrogant. He reminded her that power did not determine someone's value. She smiled and told him that those words sounded familiar. He replied that perhaps she finally understood what he had been trying to teach her from the beginning. Their quiet moment was interrupted by an urgent alarm. A group of hostile wolves had crossed the border. The pack prepared for battle. The younger Alpha wanted to lead the defense, hoping to prove that he could still protect his people. The older brother allowed him to take part but warned him not to act recklessly. The young girl was initially told to stay away from the battlefield. This time, she refused. She had spent too much of her life being told that she was incapable of doing anything. She would not return to that life simply because her powers were new. The older brother finally agreed to let her participate, but he stayed close. The battle began at the edge of the territory. The attackers were stronger than expected and seemed to know exactly where the pack's defenses were weakest. It quickly became obvious that they were not random intruders. Someone had studied the territory. The young girl fought carefully, using the techniques she had learned. Her powers were still developing, but she could now control them better. During the battle, she noticed something strange. One of the attackers seemed to recognize her. The wolf looked directly at her and called her by a name connected to her family lineage. She froze. She had never heard that name before. Before she could ask what it meant, the attacker retreated. The older brother immediately understood that the enemy had not come simply to attack the pack. They had come looking for her. After the battle, the pack captured one of the intruders. The elders questioned him, demanding to know who had sent them. At first, he refused to speak. Eventually, he revealed that his group had been searching for the girl because they believed she possessed a rare inherited power. According to him, her bloodline had once been connected to an ancient wolf clan whose abilities were feared by rival territories. The young girl could hardly believe it. She had spent her entire life thinking she had no special power at all. Now she was being told that her bloodline might be one of the reasons powerful enemies were interested in her. The elder council became divided. Some wanted to send her away to protect the pack. Others believed that doing so would only make her more vulnerable. The older brother strongly opposed sending her away. He argued that she had done nothing wrong and should not be treated like a threat simply because of the blood flowing through her veins. The younger Alpha unexpectedly supported him. For the first time, the two brothers stood on the same side. The young girl noticed the change. Her former fiancé was beginning to understand that his earlier behavior had been wrong. He was no longer trying to reclaim her. Instead, he was beginning to accept responsibility for protecting the pack and respecting her choices. But the danger was growing. The captured attacker revealed one final piece of information. The person who wanted the girl was not an ordinary rival leader. It was someone who knew the truth about her family. Someone who had been waiting for her powers to awaken. And now that her wolf had finally awakened, they had no intention of allowing her to remain free. The young girl listened to the revelation with fear, but she did not run. She looked at the older brother and realized something important. She was no longer the frightened girl who had walked away after being rejected. She had discovered her power. She had discovered her destiny. And she had discovered that she was capable of standing beside people who truly respected her. The older brother promised that whatever came next, he would face it with her. She finally accepted that she did not need to face the future alone. But far away, the mysterious enemy was already preparing for their next move. The young girl's awakening had been noticed. Her fated bond had been confirmed. And the secret of her bloodline was no longer hidden. The greatest danger of her life was approaching, and this time, it would test not only her newly awakened power, but also the strength of the bond she shared with the man destiny had chosen for her. The threat against the young wolf girl was no longer something the pack could ignore. The enemy had already crossed their borders, attacked their people, and revealed that they knew secrets about her bloodline that even her own family had never understood. The elders increased security throughout the territory, while the older brother quietly began preparing for the possibility of another attack. For the young girl, the situation was frightening, but it also gave her a new determination. She had spent her entire life believing that she was powerless. Now she finally understood that her hidden strength might be the reason dangerous people were searching for her. Instead of allowing fear to control her, she decided that she needed to master her abilities before the enemy returned. The older brother agreed to train her more seriously. Their training became much harder. He taught her how to control her energy under pressure, how to recognize changes in her surroundings, and how to trust her instincts without allowing anger to take control. He also taught her that her greatest weapon was not the amount of power she possessed, but her ability to control it. At first, she struggled. Whenever she remembered the rejection from her former fiancé, her emotions became unstable. The humiliation she had experienced still lived inside her, and sometimes her anger caused her powers to surge unexpectedly. The older brother noticed this and encouraged her to confront the pain instead of burying it. She finally admitted that part of her still wondered why she had not been enough for her former fiancé. He told her that someone else's inability to value her did not determine her worth. Those words helped her release a burden she had carried for years. She began realizing that her biggest weakness had never been the absence of powers. It had been the belief that she needed someone else's approval to feel valuable. As her confidence grew, her abilities became more stable. Meanwhile, the younger alpha was changing as well. He had stopped trying to win her back and started focusing on his responsibilities. He trained harder, listened more carefully to the elders, and began treating the pack members with greater respect. He knew that no apology could erase what he had done. Still, he wanted to become a better leader. One day, he approached the older brother and admitted that he had been blinded by pride. He said he had believed power was everything and had judged the young girl without understanding her true nature. The revelation shocked everyone. The traitor had believed that the young girl's power was too dangerous to remain within the pack. He had convinced himself that handing her over would prevent a larger war. But his actions had only created greater danger. The council confronted him. He admitted that he had revealed the location of the records and helped the enemy enter the territory. The young girl listened silently. She was angry, but she refused to let hatred control her. She told him that fear did not justify betrayal. The traitor was removed from his position and placed under the pack's judgment. With the traitor exposed, the pack finally understood the seriousness of the threat. The ancient records were moved to a secure location. The young girl continued learning about her bloodline. She discovered that her ancestors had not created their defensive power to conquer others. They had created it to protect those who could not protect themselves. That realization changed how she viewed her abilities. She had once been afraid that her strength would turn her into someone dangerous. Now she understood that power itself was not good or evil. What mattered was the person who controlled it. The older brother remained beside her throughout this journey. Their fated bond became stronger, but their relationship was still built on choice and mutual respect. One evening, she finally told him that she was no longer afraid of their destiny. She admitted that she had once believed being rejected meant she was unworthy of love. Now she understood that the rejection had simply led her toward a different path. The older brother told her that he had never seen her as someone who needed to be rescued. He had seen her as someone who was capable of becoming strong on her own. She smiled and told him that meeting him had changed her life. He answered that she had changed his life too. Meanwhile, the younger alpha finally accepted that his relationship with her belonged to the past. He apologized one final time, not because he expected forgiveness or another chance, but because he genuinely regretted the person he had been. The young girl accepted his apology. She told him that she hoped he would become a better alpha. He promised that he would. The two brothers eventually reached an understanding as well. The younger alpha respected the older brother's bond with the young girl and stopped allowing jealousy to control him. The older brother forgave his younger brother for the conflict between them. The rivalry that had once divided them slowly began to disappear. The young girl had started this journey believing that she had lost everything. In reality, she had gained something far more important. She had discovered herself. She was no longer the powerless girl who needed an alpha's approval. She was a powerful wolf with a rare bloodline, a woman who had survived rejection and betrayal without allowing them to destroy her. She had learned that destiny could open a door, but she still had to choose whether to walk through it. Her fated bond with the older brother was not simply about being chosen. It was about two people choosing to stand beside each other. The pack eventually accepted their relationship. Those who had once mocked her began respecting her. The elders recognized her as one of the strongest young wolves of her generation. But she never forgot how it felt to be treated as worthless. Instead of using her power to make others fear her, she used it to protect those who needed help. The older brother supported her every step of the way. Together, they became a powerful symbol of a new future for the pack. The young girl also continued developing her abilities. Her power became more stable, her confidence grew, and she learned that she did not need to hide her true nature anymore. One final night, she stood beneath the moon and looked toward the forest where everything had begun. She remembered the girl she had once been. The girl who had believed that her life was over after an alpha rejected her. She remembered the pain, the loneliness, and the shame. Then she smiled. Because now she understood something that she could never have understood back then. Sometimes the person who rejects you is not taking your future away. Sometimes they are unknowingly pushing you toward the future you were always meant to have. Her former fiancé had rejected her because he believed she was weak. But that rejection gave her the courage to discover her own strength. The older brother had entered her life when she was at her lowest point, but he never asked her to become someone else for him. He simply saw her value before she could see it herself. And when destiny revealed that he was her true fated mate, she finally understood why their connection had always felt different. The story ends with the young girl standing beside the man destiny had chosen for her, no longer hiding her power and no longer questioning her worth. She had lost an engagement, but gained her freedom. She had experienced betrayal, but discovered trust. She had been rejected for being powerless, only to awaken a strength far greater than anyone expected. And most importantly, she had learned that true love was not about choosing someone because of their status, power, or reputation. It was about seeing their heart, respecting their choices, and standing beside them when the world tells them they are not enough. The young wolf girl had once believed that rejection was the end of her story. But it was actually the beginning. Her powers had awakened. Her true mate had been revealed. Her enemies had been defeated. Her past had been uncovered. And the girl who once felt powerless had finally become the person she was always destined to be. So, in the end, the greatest victory was not becoming powerful enough to defeat her enemies. It was becoming strong enough to stop believing the people who had once told her she was worthless. And that is what makes her journey so emotional and satisfying. She did not simply find her destined mate. She found herself. If you enjoyed this drama explanation and loved the journey of our heroine, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends and family. Your support means a lot and helps us bring you more exciting drama stories, emotional twists, and complete story explanations. And if you want to see more amazing drama reviews and story breakdowns, make sure you stay connected with us. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.